Hi beloved you, hope you're well. This is Sophie Fox from Angelic Energies. I have recently had the absolute pleasure to see Marianne Williamson speak in Manchester. I've taken lots of notes, I would love to share them with you. She, in my mind, is the most inspirational woman on the planet. She's the author of a great many amazing books. This one is my personal favourite, A Return to Love, a reflection of the Course in Miracles. And she has recently run for US presidency twice. She's an absolute trailblazer of a woman who preaches about love. And, you know, gosh, can you imagine what a different world we'd be living in if we had somebody in power that was focused on love and what was right for the people. Anyway, I won't go there right now, but she talks a lot about the Course in Miracles. You might have heard of, a very famous book, quite difficult to understand. So what Mariam does is she puts it in language that's more up to date, that's more easily understandable. And yeah, you really need to check this book out or go on her website and find out more about her. So she explained in the seminar that the current mindset is based on separation and fear. Divine intelligence is one with all in love. The universe is self-organizing, it's self-correcting. So even though that we have free will, we're allowed to think how we want to think, we're still held by the laws of cause and effect. So if we are thinking with love, great, because we get more love back. But what we have to realize is that there is no such thing as a neutral thought. It is either coming from a place of fear or coming from a place of love. And you can't get rid of fear by analysing it. You can only replace it with love. So, she warns us that, you know, just like we might be able to enjoy the odd drink or substance, if we take too much, we become an addict. And the body then shuts down. So, as a collective society, if we are abusing the planet is going to be shutting down. It is shutting down. So, it's a real call to become more accountable for our actions. She has a lovely analogy that says, you know, we're like sunbeams, forgetting that we're actually part of the sun. Instead, we're thinking that we're separate from the sun. Or the same could be said with waves in the ocean. You know, we're thinking that we're that individual wave in the ocean, but really we're not. We're not separate from that one big ocean. It's that feeling, that sense of separation that causes fear. So if we accept that shift in perception from body identification to spirit identification, we start to move with that ocean. So much more powerful, so much stronger. And, you know, the colour of our skin, the religion that we are, none of it matters, because that is not who we are. We're not the body. Now, don't get me wrong, the body is a priceless treasure that deserves to be taken care of. But it's not who we are. You know, death is not the end. It's a continuation of life. You know, But it's coming back to the mind, and when we think without love, we're hallucinating. This is what the Course in Miracles teaches. And right now, the whole world is in a state of dreaming, or having a nightmare, it might seem. But imagine that there's a computer, and there is an undeletable file on that computer, and that's you as a divine thought of the Great Spirit, the one universal energy, or God if you prefer. And that thought is pure love. You know, we're trained to think that we're separate. You know, we've been trained to base our thoughts in fear. But actually, life is supposed to be going from one moment to the next in love. And we always have a choice. Even when we're in the most loveless situation. You know, instead of falling into victim mode, detouring into fear, you can remember that you have a choice. And, you know, if you feel that it's impossible to choose love in that moment, ask for help. Ask the Great Spirit, or God if you prefer. You know, and Marianne recommends that we say, "Dear God, help me here. I am willing to see this differently." And that's all it takes. It takes that intention to make that shift. You know, it's a real call to step up and to become responsible for ourselves, you know. Marianne was quite firm, saying that she's had enough of the world being ruled by people that are run by their damaged inner child. You know, she is wanting us all to start embracing our inner adult. We need to grow up and we need to take responsibility. And, you know, the mind of God, or the Great Spirit, as I prefer to call it, is really all that is. And there is no place where your mind stops and the Great Spirit starts. As Einstein said, quite famously, time and space are illusions, albeit persistent ones. So there is only the now. And thinking that you'll do something now to get something back later doesn't work. And remembering the oceans analogy, you know, you're not separate. You know, it's coming back to that, embracing that oneness, that sense of oneness that is going to give you the great strength that you need to be one with the self, with a capital S, not a little s. So if we fear making that loving choice because we're worried that our needs are not going to be met or we're not going to be safe, yeah, do ask for that assistance, please. And, you know, recognize that we're now at a point where if our behaviour doesn't change, we will self-destruct. So humanity is really challenged to move morally towards contributing towards love. And it's not enough to get this on an intellectual level. You know, we have to live it. And we're not here to gaze at our wounds. The ego mind, it thinks that we're separate. It wants us to think that we're separate. But think about it, you know, if you think about a time when you've done something really stupid. You didn't wake up with the intention that morning, you know, to do that. So, you know, things like addiction and focusing on your mistakes and all the rest of it, it's very sly. It's the ego promoting that sense of self-hatred disguised as self-love. Now, Marianne puts it that resurrection is the return to your right mind. You know, you have to recognize where there is loveless thinking. And spiritual exercises can help you to do that, to be still, to be non-reactive. And it's just like going to the gym and keeping physically fit, it's keeping the mind fit. You know, first thing in the morning, wake up a few minutes early, even if it's just 5 minutes early, and do a meditation and a prayer to release all that stress and worries of the world. Now, my personal prayer, before I've even opened my eyes, every morning I say, thank you, guides and angels, for all your love and assistance and protection. Let there be no limits to the amount of help you give me today. Thank you for showing me how I can best be of service today. You know, and that just sets me up, you know, feeling protected, feeling focused. You know, we're working with our internal consciousness here. Gandhi says that we can't change the world by looking at the level of effect. We have to change the mind. So I'm encouraging you now to take 100% responsibility for your life, to own your part in things, to make amends where you need to, forgive others, whether for, you know, for their transgressions. Resurrection happens when we forgive. And as I mentioned at the start, you know, the universe is self-organizing, it's self-correcting. So flicking those switches to thinking of love in every moment. That's what we need right now, people. Okay. Sending you all my love. Wishing you every happiness. You deserve it. Okay, take good care of you. And I'll speak to you very soon.